Donald Trump's presidency was filled with bold moves and significant changes that impacted the United States and the world. His time in office saw major shifts in policy, economy, and international relations. In this video, we'll take a look at some of his most important achievements which shaped his legacy and continue to influence the nation. 1. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. The landmark tax reform lowered corporate tax rates, aimed to stimulate business investment and reduce the tax burden on individuals. It was one of Trump's most significant legislative achievements. 2. Criminal Justice Reform, First Step Act. This law aimed to reform the federal prison system by reducing mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent offenses, providing inmates with more rehabilitative programs, and promoting fairer sentencing. 3. U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, replaced NAFTA, modernizing trade relations between the three nations, with provisions on labor, environmental protections, and digital trade to benefit U.S. industries. 4. Record stock market growth pre-COVID-19. The stock market experienced significant gains during the early years of Trump's presidency, driven by tax cuts, deregulation, and investor confidence in his economic policies. 5. Deregulation initiatives. Trump's administration rolled back numerous regulations across industries, arguing that reducing government intervention would stimulate economic growth and job creation. 6. Operation Warp Speed for COVID-19 vaccines, a public-private partnership launched to accelerate the development and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, resulting in multiple vaccines being available in record time. 7. Historic low unemployment rates pre-COVID-19. Before the pandemic, unemployment reached its lowest in decades, with particular success in reducing unemployment among African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women. 8. Increased funding for historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs. Increased federal funding and support for HBCUs, enabling these institutions to better serve their students and expand programs for underrepresented communities. 9. Supreme Court appointments. Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. Appointed 3 conservative justices to the U.S. Supreme Court, shaping its ideological balance for years to come and influencing key rulings on social, political, and legal issues. 10. Middle East peace deals, Abraham Accords, brokered historic normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab nations, UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, fostering peace and cooperation in the region. 11. Major tax reform for businesses and individuals. Introduced significant tax cuts, including a lower corporate tax rate and increased standard deductions for individuals, aimed at boosting economic growth and business investment. 12. Strengthened military funding and Space Force establishment. Increased defense spending to modernize the military and established the U.S. Space Force as a new branch of the military to address emerging space threats. 13. Signed VA accountability and VA choice reforms. Improved healthcare and accountability within the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, giving veterans more options to receive care outside of VA facilities and holding employees accountable for misconduct. 14. Border security and wall construction along the U.S.-Mexico border, focused on building physical barriers and increasing border security measures to reduce illegal immigration, as well as enhancing technology at the U.S.-Mexico border. 15. Cut to prescription drug prices. Implemented measures aimed at reducing prescription drug costs for Americans, including policies that encouraged competition and transparency in the pharmaceutical industry. 16. Strengthen NATO funding contributions from member countries. Trump pressed NATO allies to increase their defense spending, arguing that the U.S. was shouldering too much of the alliance's cost. Many countries responded by increasing their contributions to NATO's defense budget. 17. Record number of federal judges appointed. Trump appointed more than 200 federal judges, including 3 Supreme Court justices, solidifying a conservative judiciary for generations. These appointments reshaped the federal courts, particularly the appellate courts. 18. Withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal. Trump withdrew the U.S. from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, in 2018, claiming that the deal did not do enough to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons and was too lenient on Tehran's regional activities. 19. Withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement in 2017, arguing that the accord was unfair to American businesses and workers. The agreement aimed to limit global warming by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Number 20. China Trade Deal, Phase 1. Signed in January 2020, the Phase 1 trade agreement with China aimed to address intellectual property theft, reduce tariffs, and increase Chinese purchases of American goods, particularly agricultural products. 21. COVID-19 economic stimulus packages. In response to the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, Trump signed several stimulus packages, including direct payments to individuals, extended unemployment benefits, and assistance to small businesses. 22. Overhaul of NAFTA into USMCA. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was replaced by the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, in 2020. The new deal modernized provisions on trade, labor, and intellectual property protections. 23. Expanded access to telehealth for veterans. Trump's administration expanded telehealth services for veterans, allowing them to receive healthcare remotely, particularly in rural areas, and improving their access to VA services. 24. Expanded economic sanctions on North Korea. The Trump administration imposed additional sanctions on North Korea in an effort to curb its nuclear weapons program and to pressure Kim Jong-un's regime to engage in denuclearization talks. 25. Promoted opportunity zones for investment in low-income communities. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act included a provision to establish opportunity zones which offered tax incentives for investments in economically distressed communities, aiming to spur economic development. 26. Launched initiatives for 5G network infrastructure. Trump prioritized the development of 5G wireless networks, aiming to ensure U.S. leadership in the next-generation internet infrastructure and to counter the growing influence of Chinese technology companies like Huawei. 27. Implemented Right to Try for experimental treatments. Signed into law the Right to Try Act in 2018, allowing terminally ill patients access to experimental treatments that have not yet been fully approved by the FDA. 28. Executive Order for Kidney Health Initiatives. In 2019, Trump signed an executive order to improve kidney disease care and increase organ donation. The initiative aimed to reduce the number of people on the waiting list for kidney transplants. 29. Modernized air traffic control systems. His administration proposed modernizing the U.S. air traffic control system, transitioning from a government-run model to a privatized one to improve efficiency and reduce delays in air travel. 30. Executive actions on immigration reform and travel restrictions. Trump implemented a series of executive orders to restrict immigration from certain countries, strengthen border enforcement, and impose travel bans on nationals from countries deemed to have inadequate security measures. No matter your opinion of Donald Trump, his presidency undeniably left its mark on the country. From reshaping trade deals to boosting the economy and changing global relationships, his actions continue to spark debate. These achievements, for better or worse, remain a key part of his legacy.